But I'm going to do something completely different here, which is a positive talk about good news. It really all started when I was invited to be at a fantastic organization at the American Academy in Rome, and they give you a gorgeous studio there overlooking Rome, and they organize these wonderful lunches and dinners where you have the chance to talk to artists, architects, archaeologists, designers. And it was a very salon-like atmosphere every lunch and every dinner. And one evening I was placed, there was a big mix-up always, and one evening I was placed next to a very smart lawyer. He was the husband of one of the resident artists, worked at the European court, and he told me what we are seeing now in Hungary, in Poland, in Brazil, is really the end of democracy. And I didn't really add much to it, but after dinner, I went to the studio, I went to my lovely studio, and I looked it up. Like, what actually, when did democracy start? I know I should know, but I didn't. What is the deal with modern democracy? Well, when I looked it up, 200 years ago, 1822, there was arguably one democratic country, the United States. 100 years later, after World War I, in 1922, there were 18, and now the UN counts 97 democratic countries. It's the most, now, for the first time in human history, more than half of us live in a democracy. So what was interesting to me was he could not have been more wrong. This is a very educated, very smart person, and he could not have been more wrong about the world that he lives in. Not only are we seeing the end of democracy, we are actually living in the golden age of democracy. And me being a communication designer thought, well, that is truly interesting. What of course happened is that media became much, much more fast, went from yearly almanacs to monthly magazines to weekly to daily to hourly to online to always on Twitter. And the faster the cycles go, the more interesting negative messages become, where basically many journalists see their work only in reporting what is wrong with the world, which leads to so many of my friends thinking that we really live at the very, very edge of doom. But you know, you could say, so what really is good, what is bad, like how do you measure things? Well, I think that most of us could agree that that life is better than death. We're rather alive than dead. We rather have food than that we go hungry. We're rather knowledgeable than stupid. We rather live in a democracy than we live in a dictatorship. We are rather healthy than we are sick, and we rather live in peaceful times than in war times. And the thing is that all of these things can be measured, and all of these things actually have been measured, and they have been measured very well by agreed upon entities. Most of these numbers are from the UN or from the World Bank, and all of these things that I just measured, life and death, hunger and food, and so on, they all actually have improved. Of course, this stuff is all statistics, and statistics, you know, I don't know, you may be able to fudge them, they're still somewhat abstract. So I decided to look at my own family. These are my great-great-great-parents. So there are, no, two greats. Urgroßeltern. And Joseph and Josephine, they are lived in the 18th century, and 6 of their children died. Now, if you're a parent, you know that possibly the worst thing that could possibly happen to you in your life is the death of a child. And in their case, that didn't just happen once or twice, but 6 times. And that very, very much was the usual thing if you lived in Austria. Well, actually, if you lived anywhere in Europe, that basically half of your children will die before they were 5 years old. Then I looked at my great-grandparents. 5 of their kids still died. And they actually belonged to the elite of Western Austria because they could read and they could write. They were among the 15% of Austrians, but I think that the measurement in all of Europe was roughly the same, that could read and write. And they actually had a small antique store in the town that I grew up with in Bregenz in Western Austria, not very far from here, maybe like 150 kilometers from here. And a lot of the stuff that they couldn't sell wound up in the attic of our house and was still there a couple of years ago. And I basically took many of those paintings that were leftovers and cut them up and used them as data visualizations. So if you look at my grandmother, she had to wait until she was 48 years old until she could vote for the first time. Because, of course, female voting only came into Austria in 1918. That tiny yellow dot that you see here was female voting around the world 100 years ago. The purple dot is how women are voting now. It's basically every country in the world that has voting rights allows women to vote, with one exception of a very small one, the Vatican. But pretty much everywhere else, women, of course, are voting. The same is true for representation in government. The same is true for the workplace. There are now many more women than ever before are actually at work. But of course, I'm extremely aware not everything is fantastic, not at all. I, however, believe that we have a better chance to change things from a platform where we are aware of past successes than from a platform of doom and gloom. In this, this graphic talks about that 50% of the United States population still thought 30 years ago that women should go back into the kitchen. That has been reduced now to 25%, still way too big, but at least the curve is going in the right direction. And because I'm interested in making these graphics public, we are just started a little fashion line. I mean, I can't even call it because we're only really doing 7 different pieces. I bought this shirt yesterday, and because we are maybe the laziest fashion company in the world, the koala made the best logo, considering he's the laziest animal in the forest, lazier than the sloth even. If you are on the website and if you put something into the shopping bag, the koala turns out to be happy. And then if you leave the shopping bag without buying it, he is somewhat more annoyed with you. let's look at different things. What we just heard in the talk prior, one talk prior to this one. What's the story with global warming if you look at it from a long-term perspective, from a 200-year perspective? Which area, which continent put how much CO2 up into the atmosphere? Well, if you look at it from that point of view, this little dot is China, this is the United States, and this is Europe. Industrial revolution and all, completely different point of view if you see it from a long-term perspective. Various environmental things, an interesting little fact in California, the leaf blowers put as much CO2 into the atmosphere as all passenger cars. Not only annoy they the shit out of you on Saturday morning with their noise, but they also are as bad as all passenger cars combined. And I think that this sort of data actually will lead to outlaw them pretty quickly. We're doing glasses that has with messages from the environment on it. All these leaves are data information. And again, like some surprisingly positive notes about how oil spills actually went back. We're doing exhibitions with these and using the lenticulars for data that where only much shorter data sets are available, like this one where how many guitars are there around per 100,000 people in worldwide, and it turned out that in the 1960s you had 22 guitars for that amount of people, and you now have 11,000 guitars for that amount of people. So it's just incredible how much more musical, how much more music we are actually making as humanity. Because I love espressos, I had to do something on an espresso cup. In this case, it's for a series that Illy has been making since a fairly long time. And we figured out the way to basically print the graphic on the saucer, and then that graphic is going to be reflected in its correct curve once you put the mirrored cup on the saucer itself. And right now, this is a brand new project that we have just it's not completed yet, we are just in the way of making, but it's maybe interesting to show here because it's it's actually made in Munich, but installed in Arkansas in the United States. And it's a bicycle path for an area. It's Bentonville that really has a lot of bike paths around it. So we are working with this fantastic company here in Munich who has already done glass windows for the various cathedrals here in Munich. And they're creating these critters, these insects from Bentonville for us, 120 altogether, out of these glass mosaics, and they will go up this path where you can bike up right into the building, and at the very top, all of those insects deposit the stones to say, now is better. In the works, and I'll go through some of these. I'm, of course, extremely aware that it is somehow crazy to talk about all of these positive things. You know, we barely just got out of COVID. There's an incredibly awful war going on. And when it comes to COVID, I feel even there is it's not bad to reflect how that is situated in the world of other pandemics over the past 200 years. And if you do that, you have the Spanish flu here, you have AIDS here, you have the third plague here, and then COVID here. So the much counted word of unprecedented is just simply not true, because it is not unprecedented. We're also doing these beautiful, if I say so myself, embroideries done by master embroiderers in Suzhou, in one of the few crafts places left in southern China. This is west of Shanghai. It's all done by hand, and you can see the incredible detail that we are able to achieve, where you can still even read the typography in the book. And again, these are, of course, data visualizations. This one talks about the incredible decline of extreme poverty that went from 90% to 30% and has been even more significantly reduced. Now it went up 1% during COVID, from 9 to 10% worldwide. And it's interesting that this headline could have been appeared truthfully every single day for the past 25 years. That's really how the world developed. And I thank you so very much for listening.